Hey everybody, welcome back to Connerty Meadows Farm. My name is Ricky, and today we are making some lovely lemon squares. Look at these beauties. Aren't they great? Very delicious.
The first thing we're going to do is we're going to butter an oven-safe 9x13 pan. I am just using a glass one, nothing fancy here, and I'm just going ahead and I'm going to coat the whole bottom of this pan with butter. It does help making it a little bit easier to get the squares out when you're done. Alternatively, you could put parchment paper down. So we're going to need some butter here and some icing sugar and a little bit of salt, and we're going to need some flour. You can make this recipe gluten-free by using gluten-free flour, which I have done. You're going to need some sort of mixing vessel as well. In this particular video, it is not gluten-free, but I have made it gluten-free with zero issues at all. Just pick a gluten-free flour and sub it in where I use regular flour, and it turns out perfect. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to get my butter ready here, and we're going to use half a cup. Now this butter is at room temperature, so it's still going to be needing to be softened up a tiny bit. So you're just going to need to get your half cup butter, put it in a dish that you can microwave, or just make sure it's a little extra warm. You can't have this butter runny. It does need to be soft, but not runny. So I popped in the microwave for, I think it was about 15 seconds or so. So we're going to cut it like pie crust. You can use a fork, or you can use the pie dough cutter, which you see me have there. If you don't have the pie dough cutter, it's fine. A fork will work. It's just, I'm used to using the pie dough cutter, so that's what I'm using. All right, so icing sugar, a 1/4 cup of icing sugar. Powdered sugar, I think, is what it's also called. We just call it icing sugar here. So we're going to pop that in with the butter. And then we are going to put a little sprinkle of salt in here. And then we are going to add 1 cup of flour. And I am just using regular white flour. Again, like I said, you can use gluten-free flour. It's fine. It turns out the same. So we're going to add those all together into our mixing bowl. And then we are going to use our pie dough cutter and mix it together. Now, like I said, again, you could use gluten-free. It's fine. So the whole point of what we're doing here is to make it so that the butter is blended in with all the other ingredients, and the butter should break down to about the size of a pea. Once it's all blended in together, then we are going to take the blended powdery bits now, and we're going to add it to the bottom of this 9x13 pan. And this is where it's important. You're going to squish it down with your hand. The warmth from your hand is going to help that butter fuse into the flour and the icing sugar a little bit better. So you're going to push this down nice and flat all the way along the bottom of this 9x13 pan. And go ahead and then wash your hands, get ready for the next step. This next step we probably could have done at the very beginning, which is turning our oven on and preheating it. So you're just going to bake at 350, get it preheated. And again, yeah, I probably should have done this at the beginning, but it's okay. Not a big deal.
The next part that we're going to do is the middle, the lemon part. Now, when I was given this recipe, I was given a version for a much thinner lemon part. Now, we here in our family like a nice thick lemon part, so I'm actually going to double the recipe. If you don't want that thick lemony part on the top, just do the single part of the recipe. So we're going to need, if you're doing the single recipe, you're going to need 2 eggs, 1 cup of sugar, 2 tablespoons of flour, and 3 to 4 tablespoons of lemon juice. So what you are going to see is me double that. So 4 eggs, 2 cups of sugar, 4 tablespoons of flour, and 8 tablespoons of lemon juice. And again, it's just because we like to have that really lemony, thick center, more like a lemon pie than a lemon square. And we just found that for ourselves personally, there seemed to be more crust than filling. So we're going double with the filling.
So I've gone ahead and washed my bowl and dried it, and so now we are going to add the dry ingredients first. So we're going to add our 2 cups of sugar. And again, this is the double recipe. So 2 cups of sugar. And then we are going to add 4 tablespoons of flour. And again, this would be 2 if you were only doing a thinner lemon square. You're really going to have to play with it and see which one you like better. But we're doing 4 here. And again, if you're making this gluten-free, just make this gluten-free flour. It's fine. It always works out. I have done both multiple times. So now you're going to mix these 2 together. So your sugar and your flour are going to be mixed together nice and thoroughly. We don't want any clumps, so just make sure that your flour is sort of like, if you see any clumps, just squish them out like I am doing right here. And then we can get ready to do the next bit once we've got this all fully mixed. And the next bit would be my oven's ready. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to put the crust part into the oven. We are going to bake this, and it is going to be baked at the 350 for 15 minutes until it's slightly golden brown. And when you lift it up the bottom, you'll see that there is little bubbles through the bottom. And then we are going to grab our eggs. And yes, I do have green eggs. I'm not making green eggs and ham, but my chickens lay many different colors of eggs. So we are doing 4 eggs beaten. Again, that's double. You could do 2 if you want a thinner lemon part. And of course, I got a little shell in there. So I'm sure we all go through that. All right, so let's go ahead. We'll get the other 2 in, and we will get these eggs slightly beaten. Now that our eggs are all beaten up, we are going to add them into our flour sugar mixture. I'm just going to grab a spatula here, make sure I get all the rest of the eggs in there. And then we are going to mix these 2 ingredients together. But the other thing that we need to add that lovely lemony flavor is some lemon juice. Now, you probably can use fresh lemons. I actually never have. I just use the store-bought lemon juice because it's convenient. And you're going to add 3 to 4 tablespoons for the single. You're going to see me add about 8 tablespoons for the double recipe. And then once we have that all in, we are going to go ahead and we are going to stir this all together. And this is going to be the inside part. So this is like your lemon inside. And this is the part that makes it taste like lemon pie or lemon deliciousness. So just take your time, mix this all together. And I do try to mix it quite vigorously. I want to make sure that the sugar kind of incorporates through all of it. I don't want any dry clumps or anything like that. And then once we have that fully mixed, we're going to go ahead and we are going to get our hot plate holder out. And this is because our 15 minutes is up. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to grab the bottom part out of the oven and onto the hot plate it goes. And then we are going to take our lemon mixture. We are going to pour the lemon mixture very carefully on the top. Remember, this was hot out of the oven, so be very careful. I tend to pour it a little bit slowly so that there's less shock to the glass, and I try to pour it more in the middle and let it naturally kind of creep to the edges itself. And again, I'm just trying to avoid thermal shock here a little bit. Get that all scraped in, and then this is going to go back into the oven, and then it's going to bake. Now, if you were doing the single middle part, then you would be baking this for 20 minutes. I still put it in the oven for the 20 minutes, but in a second here, I'm going to show you what it looks like after that 20 minutes, and you can see that it's not fully set. So we're going ahead, set the time 20 minutes. Now, 20 minutes has passed, and I want you to see how jiggly that is. Do you see how wiggly that is in the middle? It shouldn't look like that. So I'm going to put it in a tin for an additional 10 minutes. And again, that's because we doubled this recipe. So we'll check it again at the 10 minutes. So what I want to see is the inside no longer jiggling and the outside edges starting to go brown. The thing is, you got to watch because they can go too brown and kind of burn a bit. But the inside of this is no longer wiggling and the outside edges are brown. I'm calling it done. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to grab our icing sugar, and we are going to grab a little strainer that I'm going to use as like a kind of sifter. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to put icing sugar on the top of this. And you want to get this done straight out of the oven when it's hot so that it can kind of melt and adhere to the top of the lemony part. And I just kind of use the spoon and tap the side, and I cover the whole thing. It's not completely necessary, but it is a nice touch, and it does add a nice little flavor to it. So just go ahead and tap that around everywhere.
Now that we've icing sugar the top of our lemon squares, we're just gonna set it aside on the counter until it cools down a little bit.
So now that it's had time to sit on the counter and cool down a smidge, I'm actually going to go ahead and cut it while it's still semi-warm. The reason I'm going to cut it when it's still semi-warm is because if I pop it right in the fridge first and then try to cut it, the crust on the bottom gets pretty hard to cut through. So it's easier to cut this while it's still somewhat warm. So just be careful, go ahead and cut it, and then we'll be able to cover it and put it in the fridge once we're done cutting. Now this was late at night when I made it, so I've just gone ahead and I've left it in the fridge overnight. And the next morning here, we're going to go ahead and we are going to take it out of this container. So I like to make a bunch of this kind of stuff like ahead of time, and then I can just throw it in the freezer, and if we need a snack or whatever, it's easily taken from the freezer. But for now, we're going to go ahead and we're going to get this out of the pan. Now, my kids love when I make squares because the outside pieces never come out very well, and those become the kids' snacks. And you can see, like, I can see the benefit of using parchment paper here, so you wouldn't have to struggle with these. But then if we use parchment paper and we didn't struggle with them, we wouldn't have snacks when I make them. So, you know, it's kind of a trade-off. And you can see how hard it is to lift that up from the bottom. And that's why I also say that going ahead and cutting it when it's warm is a little bit of an easier thing to do. And we're just going to go ahead, we're going to get off a bunch of these corners, and I will tell you, before I even finished doing all of this, my kids were out here asking for pieces to eat. And so they know they get to have some. That's half the fun of it all. All right, let's throw this on speedy. So you can see I'm just going ahead and I am putting them in a Tupperware bin, and then I add parchment paper and throw it in the freezer.
We've now made the lemon squares. We've cut them up. Let's go ahead and taste them. Now these ones, I like picture perfect ones. So I'm actually going to do the taste test on all my little ends that the kids and I like. So you'll notice on the ends, it's gonna be a little more dark brown, and that is normal because the outside edges will cook a little bit faster. But you can see on the bottom, nice little golden brown. Perfect. Almost like lemon pie. So the outside edges that are a little brown are going to be a little bit more chewy, but nice little bit of crunch to the bottom. but not too much. And then super thick, lovely lemony in the middle. Now this square is always a hit at events, on trays with multiple other little treats. Everybody loves them. This recipe can very easily be made gluten-free. I've done it multiple times. You just need to replace the flour portion with a gluten-free flour. The only difference is when you're looking for this bottom part to bake in the oven when we pull it out and it's that nice light golden brown, the gluten-free one, it doesn't go golden brown. So just stick with your times and know that you're gonna be okay. And I've never had it not work out using the gluten-free stuff. So go ahead and make it gluten-free or make it as is. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to finish pulling these squares out. These also freeze really well. Once I have this layer in here, I will put some wax paper on top, put another layer on, and this will go in the freezer. Since they freeze so well, then I'm able to pull them out as I need them. I hope that was helpful and you now have a new yummy treat to add to your treat box. Thanks for hanging out with us in the kitchen, on the farm, and we'll see you next time.